Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be exploring this tool called Medusa.
Okay.
It's making some noise as a potential game changer
Yeah.
for solo developers, startups, and software engineers. And it's calling itself a headless commerce platform.
Interesting.
So think Shopify, but way more flexible, open source,
Okay.
and ready for your custom code.
What I find really fascinating about Medusa is that it's designed for customization from the ground up.
Okay.
It's a big departure from those traditional platforms that try to be everything to everyone,
Yeah.
and often leaving developers feeling a little boxed in.
Yeah, you get stuck with those predefined features and limited customization options.
Right.
So does Medusa give you the building blocks to create a truly unique commerce experience?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's like having a set of high-quality ingredients.
Yeah,
And the freedom to cook up whatever you can dream up rather than being handed a prepackaged meal.
that sounds empowering. But is Medusa just for big tech companies with huge teams?
Yeah.
What about for solo developers or startups? Because a lot of our listeners, are in that boat.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something we'll explore.
Okay.
While Medusa is undoubtedly a powerful tool for experienced developers, it's designed with a focus on developer experience and ease of use.
Okay.
So we'll definitely dive into how intuitive it is to get started, even if you're not, a seasoned e-commerce developer.
Perfect. So let's start by just understanding, how Medusa is structured.
Sure.
What are the core components? What are we even looking at here?
Yeah, so at its core, Medusa is built around a modular architecture.
Okay.
So it has these pre-built commerce modules
Yeah.
for essential functions like inventory management,
Uh-huh.
payments, orders, all the things you don't want to code from scratch.
It takes care of the heavy lifting so you can focus on what's unique about your project.
Exactly. And these modules are designed to be extensible.
Okay.
So you can customize them to fit your specific needs as well.
Okay. Okay, so that's one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
What else makes up the Medusa architecture?
Another key element is the framework for custom features.
Okay.
So Medusa provides a set of tools and guidelines for developers to build out their own unique functionalities, whether it's, creating custom API endpoints,
Yeah.
designing unique workflows, or even integrating with external services that are, crucial for your business.
So it's not just about using what's already there.
Right.
It's also about having the tools to build what you actually need.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this flexibility extends to the admin dashboard as well.
Okay.
So Medusa's admin is fully customizable,
Okay.
so you can tailor it to fit your specific workflows and requirements.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got these pre-built modules
Right.
for the essential functionalities like we talked about.
Yeah.
We've got a flexible framework for creating custom features
Yeah,
and a customizable admin dashboard. That sounds like a powerful foundation.
it is.
But how does it actually work together? What's the magic?
So the real magic behind Medusa lies in its headless architecture.
Okay.
And what that means is that the front end,
Yeah.
so what your customers see and interact with,
Okay.
is completely decoupled from the back end,
Okay.
which is the engine running your shop.
I'm picturing like a store without a storefront.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
So think of Medusa as like a really powerful API
Okay.
that you can connect to any storefront that you can dream up.
Okay.
So you could build a traditional website, you could build a mobile app, a voice-activated shopping experience, whatever you can imagine.
So instead of being limited by, the platform's built-in storefront, you have the freedom to create the perfect front end
Exactly.
for your specific, audience and use case.
Precisely. So
Yeah.
it really gives developers that ultimate control over
Yeah.
the user experience, the branding, the functionality.
Okay.
It's all about providing those building blocks and letting you piece them together in a way that makes sense for your project.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But how do the storefronts and other systems, how do they actually communicate with Medusa?
So all interactions with Medusa happen through its API.
Okay.
So whether you're building a storefront, integrating with a third-party service,
Yeah.
or customizing the admin dashboard, it's all done via API requests and responses.
Okay. So everything is talking to Medusa through this central API.
Exactly.
But what happens when a request comes in?
Yeah.
What's the journey?
So when a request comes in, it goes through like a series of layers.
Okay.
So first it hits the API routes,
Yeah.
which are like the entry points for different functionalities.
Okay.
Then it flows through the workflow layer,
Okay.
which defines the logic
Uh-huh.
for how the system should handle that specific request.
So the API routes like the address, the workflow, is the set of instructions.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So the workflow then calls on various modules.
That's right. You know, those pre-built commerce modules that we talked about,
Yeah.
to execute the necessary actions.
Okay.
And these modules, in turn, they interact with the database, typically PostgreSQL,
Okay.
to read or write data.
So it's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
A request triggers a workflow.
Yep.
Workflow orchestrates the modules.
Yeah.
And then the modules interact with the database
Right.
to get things done.
You got it.
Okay.
And to add to that, Medusa also handles third-party integrations through these modules as well.
Okay.
So there are commerce modules for more user-facing features, like, you know, Stripe for payments, and then there are architectural modules
Okay.
for more back-end functions, like using Redis for events.
And if you need to integrate with something that's not covered by the pre-built modules,
Yeah.
you can create your own custom modules.
That's the beauty of Medusa. You're not limited by the platform's, you know, out-of-the-box integrations. You have the freedom to connect with any external system that you need. Okay, all of this sounds incredibly flexible. It sounds powerful.
Yeah.
But I'm a hands-on learner. So can we walk through like a concrete example to see how all these concepts translate into actually building something real?
Absolutely. Let's imagine we're building a new feature for managing brands within our Medusa-powered store.
Okay,
So we'll create a brand module.
love it.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm a solo developer tackling this, where do I even begin?
So the first step is creating a dedicated directory for your module within your project structure.
Okay,
This helps Medusa recognize your new module,
okay.
and it keeps things organized as well.
So new folder within the modules directory, call it brand. What's next?
So now we need to define what a brand actually is within our system.
Okay.
So think of it like defining a table in your database.
Yeah.
You know, what information do we want to store about each brand?
Okay.
So in Medusa, you do this using the data model language, or DML.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this DML makes it easier to define like the structure of our brand data.
Right.
Okay, so what would that actually look like?
So it's pretty straightforward. For example, if we wanted to store the brand's name as a text field,
Okay.
using DML, it would look something like this.
Okay.
Name.model.text.
Nice and concise.
Yeah.
So we've created our brand module directory.
Right.
We define the structure of our brand data using this DML.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So next, we build what's called a brand module service.
Okay.
And this is like the brains behind how we interact with our brand data.
Okay.
So this is where we write the logic for actions like creating a new brand,
Okay.
retrieving existing brands, or updating brand information.
So if the DML defines what a brand is, the brand module service defines what we can do with the brand.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Medusa provides, tools to make building the service fast and efficient
Yeah.
while giving you full control over the logic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where we actually start writing code.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. But before we dive into the code, there's, a few more steps involved in setting up our brand module.
Okay, let's hear it.
So we need to officially export our module.
Mm-hmm.
So Medusa knows that it's there and ready to be used.
Okay.
Think of it like adding a new tool to your toolbox.
Got it.
Right. Then we update Medusa's configuration files to include our shiny new module.
Okay.
And finally, we use Medusa's command line interface, or CLI, to update our database with the changes that we've made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're basically telling Medusa, hey, we've got this awesome new brand module, add it to your system so we can start using it.
Exactly.
And the CLI helps us manage those database changes,
Yeah,
which can be a bit of a headache sometimes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Medusa takes care of a lot of the heavy lifting, which is, a huge plus,
Right.
especially for solo developers and smaller teams.
Okay, this is all starting to come together.
Yeah.
We've got our brand module all set up, integrated into Medusa.
Right.
What's next?
Now comes the exciting part, defining the logic behind our actions. And this is where workflows come into play.
Workflows. Okay, tell me more about that.
So think of workflows as custom functions
Okay.
that define the steps and actions needed to complete a specific task,
Okay.
like, creating a brand, for example.
I'm picturing like a flow chart. We're mapping out the steps involved.
You got it.
Okay.
So each step within a workflow.
Yeah.
Can interact with different modules and even external systems, depending on the complexity of the task.
So we can really fine-tune the process to fit our needs.
Exactly.
But what about error handling? What if something goes wrong during one of these steps?
So that's where Medusa's compensation functions come in.
Okay.
These are built into each step of the workflow.
Uh-huh.
So if something goes wrong, the system can automatically roll back any changes to keep your data consistent, especially when you're dealing with external services that might be, a little unpredictable.
That's a huge relief, knowing the system has your back
Absolutely.
if something goes wrong, especially when dealing with third-party OPIs.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say we've defined our workflow for creating a brand. What's the next step to make this functionality accessible? Whether through the admin dashboard or, some other interface.
So we need to expose our brand creation workflow through a custom API route.
Okay.
Think of this as creating like a doorway
Okay.
that other systems can use to access that specific functionality within Medusa.
So we're making our custom workflow talk to the outside world,
Exactly.
but we don't want just anyone walking through that door.
Right. So we need to make sure it's secure.
Okay.
So we add authentication.
Okay.
So only authorized users can create brands. We also use what's called ZOD schemas to define the structure of the data that we're expecting
Okay.
and validate that incoming data, meets our requirements.
Okay. So ZOD schemas are like bouncers at the door.
I like that.
Yeah. They're making sure that only the right kind of data gets through
Right.
in the right format.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about those middlewares that we talked about? Where do they fit in?
So middlewares are kind of like the security checkpoint even before reaching the bouncer.
Okay.
Right. They handle things like authentication, parsing incoming data, and enforcing those validation rules.
Okay.
So it's like an extra layer of security and organization.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got our workflow for creating brands.
Right.
We've exposed it through this secure API route,
Mm.
and we've got these layers of security and validation in place.
Yeah.
What's next in our adventure?
So, brands are typically linked to products, right?
Yeah.
So the next logical step is to figure out how to associate brands with products within our Medusa system.
Right. But products are handled by a completely different module, the product module.
Right.
So how do we connect these two different worlds?
So Medusa has a really elegant solution for this.
Right.
It's called module links.
Module links.
Yes. And these links, they allow us to associate data models from different modules while maintaining the isolation of each individual module.
Okay.
So in this case, we can link brands to products without those modules, getting all tangled up.
So even though we're connecting them, they're still operating independently.
Exactly.
Okay.
And how are these links represented in the database?
Yeah. How does that actually work?
So these module links are stored as tables in the database.
Okay.
So for example, our brand product link would have a table that stores the IDs of both the brand and the product,
Okay.
creating that clear association between them.
So it's like a cross-reference table.
Exactly.
Yeah. Linking records from two separate tables.
You got it.
Okay. But how do we manage those linked records? Let's say we want to create a new product and link it to a specific brand.
Right.
How do we actually do that?
So for that, we need to extend Medusa's existing create product workflow
Okay.
to include the ability to link a brand during product creation.
Okay.
So remember that additional data parameter we talked about in API routes?
Yes.
We can leverage that to pass custom information, like the brand ID, along with the product creation request.
We're sneaking that brand ID in along with the product details.
Exactly.
Okay, clever. But once that information's in the workflow, how do we actually create that link?
Yeah, so Medusa provides a tool called Remote Link
Okay.
from its SDK, and this makes managing those linked records, very straightforward.
Okay.
So we can use Remote Link to programmatically create and manage the connections between those brand and product records in the database.
So it's like having a specialized tool for creating and managing those cross-reference entries.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. But what about going the other way?
Yeah.
Let's say we want to see all the products associated with a specific brand.
Right.
How do we query and display that linked data?
So that's where Medusa's existing APIs really shine.
Okay.
They have a fields query parameter
Uh-huh.
that lets you specify which fields and relations you want to retrieve along with a record. So when fetching products, you can include brand in your query
Yeah.
to also fetch the product's brand information.
We're saying, hey, when you get me this product, grab the brand details too.
You got it.
Okay.
And if you need more advanced filtering or pagination, like fetching only products linked to a specific brand or fetching them in batches, Medusa offers this really powerful tool called Query
Oh,
that allows you to retrieve linked data across modules with like really fine-grained control.
so query sounds like a Swiss Army knife for retrieving the data you need,
Exactly.
even across these different modules.
Yeah.
But what about displaying this linked data in the Medusa admin dashboard?
Yeah.
Can we customize the dashboard to like show a product's brand, for example?
Absolutely. So we can create what are called custom widgets to add these new UI elements to the admin dashboard.
Okay.
So for instance, we could build a widget that displays a product's brand information right on its details page.
It's like adding a new section
Yeah.
to the product details page.
Ex-
Okay. How do these widgets interact with the Medusa backend?
So they use the Medusa JS SDK
Okay.
to make API calls to the backend, just like we saw in the previous example.
Okay.
So you can fetch that linked brand data, format it nicely,
Yeah.
and display it however you want within your custom widget.
Got it.
And of course, we can use components from the Medusa UI library
Yeah.
to make sure that our custom widgets, look and feel consistent
Yeah.
with the rest of the dashboard.
So we're not just adding functionality, we're making sure it looks good too.
Exactly.
What if we want to go beyond adding widgets?
Yeah.
What if we want to create entirely new pages within the admin dashboard,
Yeah.
like the dedicated page for managing all the brands in our system?
So Medusa lets you do that as well.
Okay.
You can develop what are called custom UI routes to create entirely new pages within the admin dashboard.
Yeah.
So you could build a brand management page
Yeah.
that lists all brands, allows you to edit existing ones and create new ones, all within that, familiar Medusa admin environment.
Amazing. It sounds like we can build a completely custom brand management system,
Yeah.
right, within Medusa using these powerful tools.
Exactly.
But before we get too carried away, let's step back and look at the bigger picture.
Sure.
For our listeners who are solo developers, startup founders,
Right.
software engineers evaluating Medusa,
Yeah.
is this something that's actually practical?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one we'll explore in more depth as we continue our deep dive into Medusa.
Okay, let's do it. So we've covered a lot about how Medusa is structured and how to work with it.
Right.
But what about the practical aspect, for someone who's working on their own or in a small team?
Yeah.
Is Medusa actually a good fit?
So let's break that down.
Okay.
One big concern for solo developers and startups is often cost.
Right.
And this is where Medusa's open source nature really shines.
Okay.
There are no licensing fees, which can be a huge burden when you're just starting out.
Yeah, that's a big plus.
Right.
But even if the price is right, you don't want to get bogged down in complexity.
Yeah.
Is Medusa easy enough to learn and use for someone who might not be a seasoned e-commerce developer?
The learning curve is surprisingly gentle.
Okay.
The documentation it's very well written, it's thorough, and they even have like practical examples to help you get started.
Okay.
And don't forget the vibrant Medusa community.
Yeah.
There are tons of resources online, blog posts, tutorials, even video walkthroughs.
Right.
You're never truly alone
Yeah.
when you're working with Medusa.
Having a supportive community can make a huge difference when you're learning new technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So beyond the documentation and community support,
Right.
what are some key things that a developer should know about actually using Medusa?
So let's talk about actually getting Medusa up and running.
Okay.
Installation it's surprisingly straightforward. They have this really nice CLI tool that guides you through the entire process.
Yeah.
You basically just, choose your preferred database, usually PostgreSQL,
Yeah.
and the CLI sets everything up for you.
So you don't have to wrestle with server configurations and database setups?
Exactly.
That's nice. What about working with the APIs? We touched on them briefly before.
Yeah.
But how developer friendly are they in practice?
So the APIs they're very well structured. They follow RESTful principles.
Okay.
They're also very well documented, making them easy to understand.
Yeah.
And if you're working with JavaScript, Medusa provides a dedicated SDK
Okay.
that streamlines that interaction with the APIs even further.
So it's not just about raw API endpoints.
That's right.
There are tools to actually make your life easier.
Exactly.
Okay. And speaking of making life easier,
Yeah.
Medusa's modular architecture.
Right.
makes testing a breeze, right?
It does, because everything's nicely separated. You can test individual modules,
Hmm.
workflows in isolation,
Yeah,
which helps you, catch issues early on.
that's crucial.
Yeah,
Especially when you're working on a complex project.
for sure.
So speaking of complex projects,
Yeah.
how does Medusa handle performance and scalability?
So Medusa is built on Node.js and uses a modern tech stack.
Okay.
So performance is generally very good right out of the box.
Okay.
And because it's headless, you can scale the front end and back end independently,
Yeah.
giving you a lot of flexibility there.
So that means you can tailor your infrastructure to your specific needs.
Exactly.
Handle traffic spikes without bringing the whole system down.
Right. You can scale up specific parts of your application as needed,
Yeah.
whether it's the storefront, the API, or specific workflows.
Okay.
And because you have, full control over the infrastructure,
Yeah.
you can choose the hosting providers
Yeah.
and technologies that best suit your budget
Right.
and performance requirements.
So you're not locked into like a specific hosting provider
Yeah.
or infrastructure setup.
Exactly.
That's a big plus for startups,
Absolutely.
who might be starting small.
Yeah.
But have big plans for growth.
Right.
But what about those of us who aren't like infrastructure wizards?
Yeah,
Is Medusa still manageable?
definitely. So Medusa has been designed to be deployable on, various platforms,
Okay.
including serverless environments
Okay.
like AWS Lambda
Yeah.
or Google Cloud Functions.
Okay.
This means you can take advantage of the scalability and cost effectiveness of serverless
Yeah.
without having to manage that underlying infrastructure yourself.
That's a game changer for solo developers or small teams who don't have the time or the expertise
Right.
to manage, complex server setups.
Exactly.
So it sounds like Medusa's really trying to make things easier,
Yeah.
both for beginners
Uh-huh.
and for experienced developers who want to streamline their workflow.
Absolutely.
Speaking of experience, let's talk about the developers behind Medusa.
Okay.
Is this a project with like a solid foundation and a promising future?
You're hitting on one of the most important aspects of evaluating, any open source project.
Yeah.
And in Medusa's case, I'm happy to say the signs are very promising.
Yep.
The core team is incredibly active and responsive.
Okay.
They're constantly pushing out updates,
Yeah.
fixing bugs,
Yeah.
and adding new features.
So it's not just a side project that might be abandoned tomorrow.
Right. It's very much, actively developed.
Yeah. Yeah. What about community engagement? Are other developers actually contributing to the project?
The community is thriving.
Okay.
There's a very active Discord server where you can, get help,
Yeah.
share ideas, connect with other Medusa users.
Cool.
And the GitHub repository it's constantly buzzing with activity, pull requests, issue reports, discussions. It's a very lively and engaged community.
It sounds like there's a real sense of community,
There is.
which is a big plus for any open source project.
Absolutely.
It means you're not just using a tool, you're part of something bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about the APIs,
Right.
the modular architecture, ease of installation,
Yeah.
the active community.
Uh-huh.
But for someone who's just starting out with Medusa, what are some of the things that might not be immediately obvious?
Yeah, so one thing that really impressed me
Yeah.
was the level of thought that's gone into the developer experience.
Okay.
Medusa really goes the extra mile to make things, smooth and intuitive.
Okay.
For example, their CLI tool.
Yeah.
It isn't just for installation.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool for managing your entire Medusa project.
Okay.
You can generate boilerplate code for new modules, you can run migrations,
Uh-huh.
seed your database, and much more,
Okay.
all from the command line.
So they've really thought about the entire developer workflow,
They have.
not just the initial setup.
Uh,
That's a sign of a well-designed project.
It is.
What about any potential downsides?
Yeah.
Or areas where Medusa might not be the best fit?
Sure. So while Medusa offers a ton of flexibility, it's important to remember that this flexibility,
Yeah.
sometimes comes with added complexity.
Okay.
So if you're building, a very simple e-commerce store
Yeah.
with, minimal customization,
Yeah.
a platform like Shopify might be a quicker and easier option.
That's a good point. So Medusa's really geared towards developers
Yeah.
who, want or need that fine-grained control
All right.
over their e-commerce platform. If you're happy with a more out-of-the-box solution,
Yeah.
there might be simpler options out there.
Absolutely.
But for those who are looking to push the boundaries,
Right.
of e-commerce.
Yeah.
Build something truly unique.
Yeah.
Medusa seems like a very compelling option.
I think so.
Yeah. And one thing I think is particularly exciting about Medusa is its potential to go beyond traditional e-commerce.
That's right.
Because it's headless.
Yeah.
You can use it to power like all sorts of innovative and engaging shopping experiences.
Exactly.
Like, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these like non-traditional use cases.
Right.
So we've talked about how powerful and flexible Medusa is, but you were about to tell me about some of the less obvious ways people are using it.
Yeah.
What are some examples that might spark our listeners' imaginations?
Well, think beyond just websites.
Oh,
Imagine using Medusa to power a mobile app
yeah.
with, a completely customized shopping experience tailored to, the specific needs of your users.
Yeah.
Or picture integrating it with like an Internet of Things device
Okay.
that automatically reorders products
Okay, yeah.
when they run low.
Yeah.
Like a smart refrigerator that orders milk when you're running out.
Those are great examples. It really highlights how headless opens up, a world of possibilities.
Right.
You're not limited to just building a website. You can use Medusa to power commerce experiences in almost any context.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even use Medusa to build like a virtual reality storefront
Absolutely.
where customers can browse and interact with products in like a completely immersive environment.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah.
We're talking about the potential to completely redefine like how people shop.
Yeah.
But, for those of us who are still thinking in terms of more like traditional e-commerce,
Right.
are there any like specific types of projects or businesses where Medusa would be like a particularly good fit?
Absolutely. So Medusa really shines when you have like unique or complex requirements
Yeah.
that go beyond, what off-the-shelf platforms can offer.
Okay.
So for example, businesses operating in like niche markets
Yeah.
or with highly specialized products might find Medusa's flexibility to be like a huge advantage.
So if your business model involves subscriptions or like recurring payments, or if you have like a very intricate product configuration process,
Yeah.
Medusa gives you the tools to build those features
Yeah.
exactly the way you need them.
Precisely. And it's not just about the products themselves.
Yeah.
Medusa's, customization capabilities extend to that entire customer experience.
Okay.
If you want to create like a truly unique
Yeah.
and differentiated brand experience from the storefront design, to the checkout process,
Yeah.
Medusa provides the building blocks to make that vision a reality.
This level of control would also be a game changer for businesses that rely heavily on integrations
Right.
with external systems.
Absolutely.
Whether it's like a legacy inventory management system, a specialized CRM,
Yeah.
a unique marketing automation platform.
Right.
Medusa's modular architecture makes it so much easier to connect those dots
Yeah.
and create like a seamless flow of data
It does.
between systems.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
The ability to integrate, smoothly
Yeah.
with your existing tech stack is essential.
Yeah.
And Medusa's open source nature means you're not locked into, a proprietary ecosystem.
Right.
You have the freedom to choose the best tools for the job
Yeah.
and connect them seamlessly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Medusa,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway for our listeners? Should they be considering it for their next project?
If you're a developer who values flexibility, control, and the ability to build truly custom e-commerce solutions,
Yeah.
then absolutely.
Then
Medusa is worth serious consideration.
Okay.
It's a well-designed platform
Yeah.
with a vibrant, and growing community.
Huh?
And it has the potential to go, far beyond the traditional boundaries of e-commerce.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's been fascinating to explore Medusa's capabilities. I'm honestly blown away by the possibilities that it unlocks. So for our listeners, if you're looking for a platform that empowers you to build something truly unique and innovative, dive into the world of Medusa and see what you can create.
Happy building.
And that's a wrap for another deep dive episode. We hope you've enjoyed exploring Medusa with us. Until next time, stay curious and keep on coding.